Okay, we hear the Attitude Era, we hear that thrown around. It was a change of a logo, it was the change of some words that were being said on TV, change of some clothing for some of the ladies we would see on TV. What was the genesis for this, in your opinion? Was it a Vince Russo creation? Is this McMahon realizing that the business needs to take a right turn? What was the precipitating factor for the Attitude Era?
I think it was a lot of things. It was Vince Russo. Vince Russo was really one of the few guys that would directly and straight to Vince's face tell him, you don't have a clue. You're not in touch with what is really going on in society. And he was in a large part responsible for that direction of forcing Vince kicking and screaming in that way. I think what opened the door was Steve Austin. I think that he was the guy who, again, there wouldn't have been any Stone Cold Steve Austin if Steve Austin hadn't taken, the bull by the horns, walked out there, and that one promo, they all say that was kind of like the turning point, which it really kind of was for him. He kind of kicked the door open because at that point in time, he was in the mix, but he was never really going to be anything. And he took the one rule that who was it that taught me that? I can't remember, but I remember them coming in and telling me. He said, "Listen, whenever you go into a territory, if everybody's talking on the mic, be the one guy that's screaming." He said, "If everybody's wrestling, be the one guy that's fighting. If it's the opposite, do the opposite. Always be the one guy that's doing whatever everybody else isn't doing, because you'll be the one guy that stands out. You'll be the one that everybody talks about. You ain't going to make any friends. You're going to have a lot of problems. But if it works and it gets over, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get to keep doing it." And at that point in time, Steve Austin was the only guy that stepped out and did that. Everybody else was doing this, all safe and cozy, and he just went off in a completely different direction. And he was the only one that did it. So as a result, he stood out. And I think he was the one that, excuse me, think he was the one that kind of, the fact that it worked, it helped give traction and leverage to what Vince Russo was saying to Vince McMahon, and to what I understand, a large part, several other people that were also barking at Vince McMahon about that too, about that new direction, and not being so sanitized.
How influential was ECW, or at least I won't say the word attitude, the milieu that ECW was creating for Vince to adopt something dangerous, different?
I think it was a very large part of it too, because he's seen it working in that area, and now he did not do ECW, which was smart. He made his own version of it, or his own style, and it worked quite well financially. And ECW worked for what it was, and got it to where it was, because they worked at a lower level. They were not. That's another popular myth, that there was a big three. There was not a big three. There was WWE and there was WCW. ECW was running, buildings that probably the biggest building was maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people. You put that in light of WCW when they were hot, running 20,000 seat arenas, and WWE the same thing. It's apples and oranges. You can't compare them. That's absurd.
Is ECW ever acknowledged by anyone on creative in WWE at this
certainly,
time?
Yeah.
As something to
and still
emulate?
do, certainly, yeah, absolutely. But that was nothing new to the business. I mean, you again, the concept of that we've reinvented the wheel, which apparently it's now hexagonal or octagonal. It's not just round. It's got more sides to it, even though it's all still the same thing. Even back in the territory days, everybody had their own distinct approach, style, feel, from territory to territory. And bookers or promoters would see an angle or a direction that one booker or angle was doing, and they'd take it and they'd tweak it and they'd use it in their own territory with their own talent, and utilize that to pop the house, pop the territory.
What are the good things that the business inherited from that Attitude Era?
What's the good thing? More exposure, more mainstream exposure, more mainstream acceptance, more of an attitude of that the wrestlers themselves were more celebrities, which I think in a grander scale, I think is probably going to lead more to the downfall of wrestling, because young talent, kids who want to be wrestlers now, they don't get in the business to be a wrestler. Like I got in the business, I just wanted to be a wrestler. That's it. And I wanted to have matches that people could. I clearly remember still to this day. I wanted to have matches that people would remember. I wanted to make a very good living, and I wanted to have a name that years from now, people would, they'd know who I was. Like, Austin Idol, Harley Race, Terry Funk. I'm not saying I'm on that level, but that's always been. Those were my three goals: was to have some form of leave some mark on the business, not a mark, leave some mark, even if it's just a skid mark, if nothing else, on the business. And nowadays, kids are want to get in the business to be a celebrity. They don't want to be a wrestler. They want to be a celebrity. And so as a result, they want to just be a WWE superstar. They don't want to wrestle. They want to be famous. That's a completely different motivation. So they don't want to, and they want it now. And they're being given it now, before they're far ready. When I broke in at 18, everybody would say, look, kid, you're probably not going to make any real money until you're probably in your mid-30s. Because it literally takes so many years of experience and getting knocked down and picking yourself back up to really grasp and understand the wrestling business, which was back to my comment about the whole training thing, of thinking that by going and spending any amount of time in an empty building and learning just how to bump and do moves and things like that's training. That's ridiculous. Where you learn, where you train is in front of an audience, and you make mistakes. And unfortunately, there's not a forum or a situation nowadays for young talent to be able to have a minimal investment and to be able to go out there and totally screw up in a way. And get that experience and understanding before they're put on a national platform.
Not even developmental territories?
No, because unfortunately they have fucked the developmental system. The developmental system should not be just one centrally located giant plant. I mean, WCW, if you learn nothing, when we learn nothing from history, we are doomed to make the same mistakes. WCW had the power plant. How successful was that? It was the shits. Well, what do we got now? We got WWE's power plant. How successful do you think that's going to be? Why? Because they don't run that many live shows. They have them herded in there like cattle, and they're in an empty building just doing drills. They're not learning or understanding the concept of how what they're doing is to draw money, and through experience of doing that, there should have been. Take me out of the equation, because everybody's going to say, well, you're doing that because you're slighted and you lost your job. I care less. I was there for 13 years. At some point in time, it's going to come to a fucking end. It was great. I have nothing to complain about. But they should have kept that Louisville system. They should have kept the Atlanta system. They should have given Booker T a developmental in Texas. And then they should have had Florida. They should have had 4 or 5. And then the general rule of thumb is that most talent are going to be in that system for probably 2 years if they can't find something, or a writer doesn't get a hard on and have a sudden idea for one of them, that they're going to be in there for around 2 years. Well, leave him in Louisville for a while. If he does, and he has his run there, and if his run's up, or he's not really fitting in, Move him to Atlanta. Maybe he'll figure something out there. Well, if he hasn't figured it out in that amount of time, or he gets hot for a little while as a babyface, and then his run's over. Remember, one like this. So you can only, so when it comes time to move him down here, well, we either move him down here or we move him to Florida, or we move him to Texas. And now, for some reason, the booker there, the promoter there, sees him as a heel. Well, now he's got the chance to learn how to be a heel, and because all performers, if you're a babyface, you got to learn how to get yourself over. You got to learn how to keep yourself over, and you got to learn how to get yourself back over. Okay? As a heel, you got to learn how to get your heat, how to keep your heat, and then how to get your heat back. You always have to, and you don't get that chance, you don't get that opportunity, or that understanding based on going out and performing 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week in front of a live audience, and not having some dick standing back there going, "That was a great match. That was at least 3 or 4 or 5 stars. Oh God!" No, if he's standing back here and he goes, "Well, you know what, guys? We had 350 people last month. This month we had 280. That's the shits. What did we do wrong? Where did we screw up? And now we had 350 last month. Now we have 475. What did we do right? Because we need to keep doing that." You understand? It doesn't matter how good your fucking match is. Because if your match doesn't result in extra ticket sales, then it don't matter. It means nothing. How many times have you heard about, oh, this guy had a 5-star match? It was in front of 85 fucking people. I'm not putting that down. But they came back the next month and it was in front of 22. Well, apparently that wasn't that great a fucking match, now was it? Because it didn't generate more income. And if it doesn't generate more income, then how is the promoter going to continue to pay for rent and other investments that he has to make in order to run the show? Well, apparently everybody thinks that promoters are just philanthropic people. Afraid not. They're not. It's a matter of them having that genuine, hands-on experience in every role too. Of being on TV and having to put other guys over, and understanding why they're putting those guys over is that this guy's hot, and that if we get him over, as opposed to me making $50 a night, this guy gets over, yeah, he's going to make $100 a night, and I'm going to make $50 a night, and if he gets over, he's going to make $300 a night. But guess what? Now I'm going to make $150 a night. So it's in my best interest to get this guy over, or to get this guy heat, and I understand that from a direct correlation as to how many people showed up. And then when I'm in that spot, I've got to understand that it's not just about me getting over for me, it's about me getting over so that we all make money. And that, as a result, is from, and the only way that they're ever going to get that, and the only way you're ever going to possibly develop that talent, is to give them that experience in Louisville, in Atlanta, in Florida, in Texas, in Maine, in California, wherever you want. And what frustrates me is that WWE, that's their product, and they, as opposed to, and they're investing a ton of money in the developmental system, but not in the proper way. They're developing, they're using it in just a sanitized, closed-in environment, as opposed to taking these guys out and making them go from town to town to town to town to town, which is really where they're going to learn.